Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. On behalf of the Graduate Student Association and the Oath Planning Committee, I'd like to welcome you to the inaugural Graduate Student Oath Ceremony. And we thank you all for attending and showing your support and dedication to the graduate students here at Penn State. I would like to introduce Dr. Eva Pell, Senior Vice President for Research and Dean of the Graduate School. And as of January 1st, Dr. Pell will serve a new role as the Smithsonian Undersecretary for Science, and we congratulate and offer and sincere congratulations for that accomplishment. Dr. Pell has been very active in scientific integrity here at Penn State, and she has demonstrated her role in that by initiating a new requirement for all graduate students, the Scholarship and Research Integrity Program. So I would now like to thank Dr. Pell for taking time out of her busy schedule to be here this afternoon and to show her support of our initiative for the Graduate Student Oath at Penn State. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. And to begin with, let me say thank you to you, Rachel, and for the graduate students for inviting me to come to this. This is really a great event. And before I tell you all the reasons I think it's great, I have to tell you one of the reasons is I have serious white coat envy. In my day, I'm a plant biologist. I have owned many white coats. They have had green stains, brown stains, acid burns, but they've never had any embroidery. So I think this is really a great way for those of you who are starting your graduate careers and for those of you who are reinforcing your value system, I congratulate you for being here as well. I am really proud of the graduate students at Hershey for designing this program. I've been told that this is your initiative, and it is a wonderful initiative. You are clearly ahead of the curve and should feel very good about what you're doing. When you invited me to come and address all of you and give a welcome, it reminded me of a talk, and so I went into my Word documents and I found the talk I gave on August 19th, 2001 to the graduate students at Penn State University, and I titled the talk, "The Road to Success in Research and Scholarship Must Be Paved with Integrity and Responsibility, Not Just Good Intentions." So I gave that talk about 8 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday, and I'm going to tell you why I remember it in a minute. But the talk has woven into it lots of examples of problems that arise for people, not students necessarily, students, faculty, researchers. Many of the examples I give are at Penn State. But what I remember clearly was what motivated me to write this speech, and I'm going to share it with you today because it's probably the saddest story I know. There was a graduate student at Penn State, and she was a very promising person. She had a wonderful record. She won every prize there was. After she graduated, she got a fantastic job. And after she graduated, as typically happens in a lab, the next generation of students were picking up the work that she had left behind because she was going on to other things. But they started having problems. They could not repeat certain things that she'd done, and so they started calling her and said, you know, where are the clones that you used to isolate this gene? And she said, they're in this freezer, and they're this location, that location. And this went on for about a year, and at one point they kind of gave up. They couldn't find the stuff in the freezer, and they said they tried to resequence the gene themselves. Well, they couldn't do it. And they kept calling her, and one day she arrived at University Park, and she went to her major professor, and she sat down, and she said, you're not going to be able to find the clones because they don't exist. So this was reported to me because in my role as Vice President for Research, I'm responsible for research misconduct. And she came to see me, and she said, you know, I sequenced in this direction, I sequenced in this direction, and if you know anything about it, they've got to overlap, and then you know you've got the whole gene. And she said, I just couldn't get that last 20 base pairs. And I cut a corner, made the data up. So we went through an investigation, and the committee recommended to me that her degree be revoked. People have asked me, what is the hardest thing you've had to do, and I've been in my job for 10 years. I will tell you, from a difficulty point of view, it was not hard. From an emotional standpoint, nothing will ever be harder. I remember typing the letter to Dr. Spanier, and the words I used were, every year at commencement, I certify these worthy students who have done all these things and have deserved their degree, and it's with great sadness that I must decertify this student, and we must strip her of her degree. And the president and I had a long talk, and he said, oh, isn't there anything she can do? I said, no, there really isn't. But it was a horrible experience. And I have to believe that by having more education up front at the beginning, I don't believe that this was a bad person. I don't believe she set out to cut a corner. I believe she got stressed, she had a job waiting for her, she was pretty sure she knew she had the right gene, and it just happened. And things do happen if we don't really process what we're here for. And what we're here for is for the power and the wonder of creating new knowledge, and there are no shortcuts for that. So I'm going to tell you, I read this, and one of the last sentences I wrote is, there are no shortcuts to experiencing truth and no roadmap to get there. And I think by understanding our responsibilities and really internalizing it, we can avoid the kinds of temptations that sometimes come along for people. So again, thank you for letting me be part of this wonderful day and the exciting initiation of your time as graduate students. I spoke to many of the students at University Park earlier this week, and I said, it is the most thrilling thing in the world is to be a graduate student. Your first experience at immersing yourself totally 100% in research. You are going to have a marvelous experience at the College of Medicine. I encourage you to see what else is going on at the university. Come to University Park when you can to participate in some of the programs there. I congratulate you on being here, and congratulate you again for this wonderful program. Thank you.
So I just wanted to give a brief background onto the origin of what led us to create the oath here at Penn State. The idea of an oath is by no means a new concept. For decades now, medical students have begun their academic career by taking part in the Hippocratic Oath. And we felt as graduate students that having a similar rite of passage for incoming students here at Penn State would lay a foundation for what we expect both of our students professionally but also ethically. And it's important for us to ensure that the graduate students here maintain a certain level of ideals regardless of their background, their upbringing, what program they're in, or where they think they may go in the future. And as a result of that, we spent the past year developing an oath that reflects what we felt were Penn State values. And so I'd now like to introduce John Cook, who is our Academic Integrity Officer for the Graduate Student Association, and he also served on the Oath Planning Committee, to talk briefly about the creation of the oath that we'll be taking for the first time this afternoon.
Initially last June, Dr. Verderame presented a letter from that current month's issue of Science describing a new graduate student oath that was being implemented at the University of Toronto. And he asked the GSA leadership to take a look at this oath and to see if this is something that we want to implement on this campus. The response from the leadership was, yes, this is something we do want to implement. From there, Dr. Verderame and the GSA leadership, we dissected and analyzed the pros and cons of various oaths inside and outside of biomedical sciences. From there, a decision was made that a brief oath based on the fundamental principles of integrity, professionalism, and scholarship would be the best approach. Through meetings over the next several months, the graduate student oath was revised and developed. When we had reached a final draft, GSA leadership first presented this student oath to the current student body at the Graduate Research Forum this past spring. At that time, the current student body was able to ask any questions, give suggestions, or voice any concerns for the graduate student oath. Additionally, the oath was presented to the faculty academic team for approval and implementation. Now, how we were going to implement this oath was for much further discussion. However, early in the developmental process, it was determined that a meaningful public ceremony, such as today, would be a positive experience for graduate students at Penn State Hershey. All of the hard work that I just described culminates in the program that we have today.
So I'd now like to introduce Dr. Alan Snyder for a keynote address. He is the Professor of Surgery and Bioengineering, the Associate Dean for Technology Development, the Interim Vice Dean for Research and Graduate Studies, and the Interim Vice President for Health Sciences. Dr. Snyder.
Thanks, Rachel, and I want to thank you and Jonathan, the rest of the GSA leadership, the authors of the honor code for bringing us together this afternoon. I also want to thank friends and members of the faculty who've come to show their support. I want to thank Dr. Pell for finding a way at a very busy time to be here this afternoon. Eva, we've gone through labs together many times, always on some kind of schedule, and you always stop to talk with the students, and that's an example for which I'm personally very grateful. I also want to recognize Dr. Michael Verderame for his unending dedication to our students. As graduate students, you already know or will quickly learn that Dr. V is the happiest when you own the day. And I know that he's very happy today to sit back and watch you do your thing. Mostly, of course, I want to honor our students for the initiative that you've taken and for the commitment you're making this afternoon. You declare today that the privilege of calling yourself a scientist is earned through unwavering commitment to the highest standards of conduct, to the advancement of wise use of knowledge in the world, and to the integrity, validity, and relevance of your profession. You promise to seek and share knowledge, to cultivate wisdom, and to maintain humility. Humility tends not to be a problem for new graduate students. In fact, when we welcomed you a couple weeks ago, we encouraged you to be bold, and we told you you needed to question your professors. And we told you that once in a while they'll respond, that's a really good question. Great scientists always show a measure of humility because great science always starts with identifying something important that you don't understand. The commitment you're making today is a sign of trust in the culture of science. And it's also a statement of confidence in your own abilities, and it's also a key to your fullest success. Let me explain by way of an example. Consider our little friend we call the outlier, and if this hasn't happened to you yet, it'll happen one day. You have the theory, you think you know what's going to happen, all these points are going to fall along this line, and there's that one data point. It's like the unruly child that won't get in line to go to lunch or something. The one data point that just stands apart from the others. And what are you going to do about it? Well, maybe it's an error. And if it's an error, you're going to find out how it happened so it's less likely to bother you again. But maybe, just maybe, that single outlier that's so easily brushed aside, which would be the wrong thing to do, is into a window into something that nobody's ever recognized before, and no one's ever noticed before you, and no one's ever understood before you. That's your dream as a scientist, that one surprise, the one question that opens up a new world. And yes, with a lot of hard work between here and there. Either way, your commitment to diligence, to discipline, to an open mind, to honesty with yourself and others demonstrates some very important things about you. It shows that you trust your peers to value sound, honest inquiry over all else. And it shows your confidence in your own capacity to investigate and understand. Because your generation will set the norms for how science is done in the future, the current generation is grateful for the commitment that you make today. Again, I want to commend our students who recognize the importance of these principles, commend all of you who are taking the oath today, suggest that all of us renew our vows, as it were, as the students do so, and I wish our incoming students great success in their work. Thank you.
So I'd like to invite any advanced graduate student that's here today that would like to participate in taking the oath to come down front, and John and I will hand out a card. The advanced graduate students are going to go first, and then the incoming class is going to have a bit of a more formal ceremony where you'll receive the white coat and be called down alphabetically. So. So I have entered the serious pursuit of new knowledge as a member of a community of graduate students at Penn State College of Medicine. I will strive to uphold the values of integrity, professionalism, and scholarship. Okay. So there's a line on here that we don't have pens down front, I don't think, but please sign it when you get back up to your chair or back to your lab, and keep it with you. Keep it in your lab coat and use it as a reminder of what the commitment you made when you came to Penn State. So if you guys want to sit down, then we'll begin Okay, so now for the presentation of the coats to the first-year students, I'd like to ask Dr. Robert Milner, Dr. Kent Verana, and Dr. Richard Courtney to come forward. Dr. Milner is going to call each student down alphabetically. If you can go down to the side over here, and you'll get assistance with your lab coat. Dr. Milner is a professor of neural and behavioral sciences, the director of the neuroscience graduate program, a distinguished educator, and the director of office and postdoctoral affairs. And Dr. Kent Verana is the Elliott S. Vassell Professor and Chair of Pharmacology, as well as a distinguished educator. And Dr. Courtney is the Professor and Chair of Microbiology and Immunology, and also a distinguished educator. And all of these individuals are very strong advocates and supporters of graduate education here, and serve a very great role in keeping our ethics up to date, and we appreciate it. So we thank them for being here today. So please come forward when your name is called, and if you would just remain up front, then once everybody gets down, we'll say the oath together.
Thank you, Rachel. To the first year class, you can see I actually own a clean white lab coat, right? It's a standing joke. And I'll call you out individually in alphabetical order. I will try not to mangle your names. If I do, I apologize in advance. Kathy did give me the phonetic and pronunciations. So we'll start with Matthew Almond. Rebecca Balch. Darren Ban. Gregory Berry. Sergei Birkov. and Jennifer Bierkoff. Candice Blair. Alison Cleary. Ingrid Dahlstrom. Matthew Jablensky. Brittany Ebersol. Kenneth Hauser. Jessica Eminem. Gihan Jarasura. Christopher Jenny. Rebecca Cadiz. Gregory Cardos. Andrew Kelleher. Bradley Kennedy. Vijay Koya. No Vijay. Alison Lacovi. Sangmin Lee. Dominic Leitner. Alex Lynn. Ying Lu. Brittany Luckett. Lindsay Marsham. Daniel McHugh. Matthew Mall. Joseph Nestico. No, Joseph. Megha Patel. Tong Ren. Sherry Renault. Michaela Schubert. Marie Shana. No. Christine Skabinski. Matthew Stake, Joy Tan, Sufern Tan, Rebecca Templin, Darshan Trivedi, Lindsay Ward, Kristen Yetming, and Megan Young. Are there any first-year students whose name I haven't called out? Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So for everybody up front, if you didn't bring down your brochure with you, there's a copy of the oath in your left pocket. Or it might have been helpful beforehand. So if you just want to, I'll start, and then if you just want to read the front of the card where it has the I and the blank, and we'll just read that. Thank you. I have entered the serious pursuit of new knowledge as a member of the community of graduate students at Penn State College of Medicine. I will strive to uphold the values of integrity, professionalism, and scholarship. Okay. Thank you. So that's the conclusion of our ceremony, and I'd like to once again thank you all for being here today and supporting the graduate students, and I'd like to invite you out to the hallway for refreshments, so if you guys want to lead the way, and then we can go out and have some refreshments and relax. So thank you.